Before we begin coding anything, it's important to understand the various resources made available to us by WordPress. In this lecture, we'll be exploring the various resources made available to you and learn a little about WordPress. I'll be providing links in the resource section of this lecture. If we were to search for WordPress, you'll come across two sites, which are WordPress.com and WordPress.org. Even though they have similar domain names, you should be aware that there is a huge difference between the two. The .com domain is a hosting platform for WordPress that is supported by a private company. I'll talk more about the company in just a moment. The .org site is for anyone who wants their site powered by the WordPress software. It's user-friendly and provides a plethora of options for customizing it. Right off the bat, I want you to know something very important about WordPress hosting platforms. There are a lot of them out there, but I do not recommend using these kinds of hosts. As a developer, you'll want to have full control over your WordPress sites. A lot of WordPress hosting platforms really limit what you can install and use. While they're user-friendly, they're not developer-friendly. If you're talking to a client and they ask you what hosting provider you recommend, try to recommend something which gives you, the developer, more flexibility. As this course progresses, I'll definitely talk more about hosting options and what you should be looking for in a host. Alright, let's keep moving forward. The .org site is for the WordPress software itself. This is where we'll be spending 99% of our time throughout this course. Right away, you'll find a button to download WordPress. As of this course, we'll be working with WordPress version 4.7. Download WordPress now, as we'll be installing it on our machines in a future lecture. Don't worry if you see a higher version of WordPress. All code we write will be compatible with future and past versions of WordPress. Throughout this course, you'll find that features from versions as old as 1.5 are still supported and used. Let's explore this site a little more. Under Support, click Documentation. Here you'll find information about WordPress and its features. You'll notice that we're in something called the Codex. That's just a fancy word WordPress uses to call its own documentation. Back in the early days, WordPress used the Codex for everything, from code examples to simple explanations about the user system. However, as WordPress grew, the development team realized that mixing this information was not a good idea. So they took all the resources related to coding themes and plugins into its own section. In the URL bar, change the word Codex to Developer. Here you'll find resources strictly related to developers. Throughout this course, we'll be switching between the Codex and developer resources. From time to time, you'll find that the Codex resource contains code, but that's because the WordPress team hasn't fully transitioned all the code examples from the Codex to the developer site. It's currently a work in progress. One of the great things about this site is that it is all dynamically generated. The WordPress team made it so that this site will scan all the code in WordPress and generate this documentation. This way, the site is always kept up to date. Let's explore how to use this site very quickly. Right off the bat, you'll be provided with 3 links to 3 different sections on how to develop themes, plugins, and applications. However, these are only guides. If you want to look up a function or class, then you need to scroll down and click this code reference section. You'll be taken to a search page where you can look up functions, hooks, classes, and methods. We haven't gone over hooks, so I won't expect you to know what that is. So, let's ignore that for now. Scrolling down, you'll find that WordPress will document all the latest code added to the WordPress core. This is a really great way to check out what functions are added. On the right, you'll find all the APIs available. We'll be exploring most of these throughout this course. Let's take a look at how to search for code. I don't expect you to follow along. You just need to understand that all this does is help you find more information about functions and other WordPress code. By the end of this course, you'll be more than comfortable using this tool. Alright, I'm going to search for something called the content. We get about 10 results back, which is fine. I'm just going to go with the first result. WordPress will load this page that provides a lot of information on how you would go about using this function. There are a couple of things I want to highlight. The first thing is that you'll be provided with the original source code. Here you'll find where WordPress defines this function. This is a really great way to understand how WordPress functions internally. A lot of this code may not make sense, but I assure you that you'll be able to read code like this and understand what it means by the end of this course. Next is the changelog section. This will document when the function was first introduced and if there were ever any changes. As you can see, this function has been around since version 0.71. As I stated previously, WordPress is a very popular choice because most code you write will be compatible with earlier versions. Not as early as this, but you shouldn't have any problems with a few versions back. Down further, you'll find a related uses section. Here you'll find where a function is used within WordPress itself. This is a really great way to see how WordPress itself uses its own code. You'll find some really great examples by reading through the WordPress code itself. The last section is the user contributed notes. This section is available for anyone and everyone to submit some tips and tricks on how you would go about using this function. Something important I should highlight is that not all pages are like this. Some pages will provide even more information and others will provide very little. For the most part though, functions that are commonly used tend to be documented quite well. I know this is a lot of resources to take in, but I promise you, we will definitely be going over how to use both of these resources to your advantage. To reiterate, the codex is where you'll find information on WordPress and all its features. The information presented here is really user-friendly. The developer site provides information related to the code of WordPress. A lot of this information is technical and aimed at developers. Before I finish things off, let's explore the site Automattic.com. Automattic is a company that makes huge contributions to the WordPress software. They own plugins such as Jetpack and WooCommerce. Even though they don't own WordPress, they do have a big influence over the open source software. Automattic owns the .com domain of WordPress, but they do not own WordPress itself. It's very important to make that distinction. Anyway, that's about it. We're almost ready to begin writing some code. In the next lecture, we're going to start setting up our system for WordPress development.